Thank you, Presiding Officer, and I welcome the motion that's been brought for debate today. I think the Greens have long-standing expressed support for deliberative democracy in a range of different forms. At a local level, with participatory budgeting, for example, we've seen that it can be done well or done badly. And we need to, as we explore the greater use of deliberative democracy, we need to learn from that experience. I don't think that learning is going to be well served by the kind of debate that so far we've seen this afternoon. Deliberative democracy, and Adam Tompkins is right about this, does not in any way need to be seen as in conflict with parliamentary democracy or undermining the role of elected governments or elected parliaments. It can be and should be complementary and enriching in a way that there was so chronically missing in the run-up to 2016. Adam Tompkins and I are both on the Finance and Constitution Committee, which has been hearing evidence on the referendums bill. And while we, I'm sure, won't agree on everything about that, one of the common themes that I think we can all recognise from the evidence that we've heard so far is a distinction between a referendum held in the full light of a well-worked-up, detailed proposition, either published legislation or something detailed like the Scottish Government's White Paper, and on the other hand, what we saw in 2016, a referendum based on a narrow proposition, something as simplistic as a slogan, "Take back control." I think the Irish experience of using citizens' assemblies to inform and enrich the debate about constitutional change in their country is something that we should learn from, something that is a far greater expression of genuinely deep democracy than what we saw in 2016. And if the question on EU membership, for example, had been subject to that kind of detailed deliberation in advance, I think we would have ended up with a much richer debate and far greater clarity about what should happen as a result. Inevitably, further constitutional change is coming. Whether Brexit goes forward and is implemented, and I hope that it can still be stopped, or if it is killed off in its tracks, and we simply reflect on what has happened to us over these last 3 years, and the level of contempt that has been shown to Scotland's democracy by the UK government. Further constitutional change is clearly coming. Let's make sure that when it comes, it is as informed as it could possibly be by that deliberative process. Now, I understand that some people want to see this simply as an opportunity to have a proxy debate about independence. Adam Tompkins doesn't need to be suspicious that the SNP might privately, secretly, covertly support independence. We all know that they do. He knows that I support independence. I know that he doesn't. I have no fear from a citizens' assembly that wants to consider whatever proposals Adam Tompkins comes forward with, even if it was to support in every dot and comma the UK government's proposals for what should happen after Brexit. I would have no hesitation in seeing a citizens' assembly consider those options, and I wouldn't feel threatened by it. I give way.
Adam Tompkins.
I'm very grateful to Mr Harvie for giving way. I don't feel threatened, Mr Harvie, but the difference is this. In Ireland, Citizens' Assembly had all-party buy-in because Citizens' Assemblies started on issues where all parties agreed needed to be addressed by a Citizens' Assembly, and that is not the case in Scotland, and that's what I regret.
Well,
Patrick Harvie.
Indeed, I regret that Mr Tompkins' party isn't buying in. He's perfectly capable of buying in and seeing any issues that he thinks the Citizens' Assembly should consider, it will consider. Similarly, I will in just a moment, similarly with the Liberal Democrats, I don't think that a Citizens' Assembly should rule, for example, that federalism is to be rejected. But I don't think that the Liberal Democrats should be unwilling to see a Citizens' Assembly come forward and offer their proposals to it.
Mike Rumbles.
Harvie for giving way. Would he not agree with me that we can all agree and have agreed in this chamber that we face a climate emergency? I would have thought he, of all people, would have wanted to see the first subject that the Citizens' Assembly address is this climate emergency, yet we've heard nothing about it from him.
Patrick Harvie.
Well, Mr Rumbles does know, I'm sure, that that was the basis of our amendment, and I'll come on to that in a moment. I do want to say, though, that unlike him, I do think that the current constitutional crisis that we are in also constitutes an emergency. From the contempt that's been shown for devolution to today what has been deemed an illegal proroguing of Parliament, I do think that we're in a constitutional crisis which should be considered an emergency. I regret that the only amendment that we will be able to vote on today, therefore, is the Liberal Democrat one. The Green Amendment did learn from the experience in Ireland, which, for example, identified broad brushstroke ideas like the role of taxation in the transition to a low-carbon economy. Not answering the detailed questions, but addressing that broad brushstroke. I think that the climate change bill gives us the opportunity to use the same deliberative democracy approach in relation to climate change. I'm glad that the Minister has said he supports that. I hope that he will say on the record that he will back an amendment to the climate change bill to mandate that process. And although I'm not able to move that amendment today, Presiding Officer, I do propose it, and I propose it to all parties in this chamber, that they will back an amendment to the climate change bill as well, to ensure that we can move forward in that open, participative and deliberative process in relation to climate, just as we should and must in relation to the Constitution.